Hey, what's up guys? So about 2 months ago, I made a video doing a review on this guy right here. It's a Senville mini split. And as you'd have it, of course, not too long after that video, it actually broke on me. Now, I was able to fix it for completely free, so just know that, but I felt compelled like, hey, I should definitely make a follow-up video so that people have all the information out there and just understand it. If you're interested in buying a mini split, as well as, you know, for anybody else that had the same problem as me, I think this might help them out with just understanding like what the problem was and how to fix it and whatnot. So basically what happened was one day I came out into my garage, this is where my office is, and the mini split was off, which I thought was strange. You know, I never actually turned it off, so I just thought that that was odd. Tried to turn it on and it wouldn't turn on. So I was actually a little worried and wondering what's going on. Then I decided to check the circuit breaker. I saw that it had tripped, so I was like, oh, okay. I flipped it back on and the machine came back on. So I thought, ooh, dodged a bullet there. I thought my mini split was broken and it looked like it was working and everything. About 5 to 10 minutes later, I got this E1 code, which is an error code. So of course I went to the internet, started doing some research. I was surprised to find, I think most of these mini splits are very similar from the different brands because a lot of the brands have an E1 code. So with Senville, I forget how I got here, but I basically found this little PDF that was like a troubleshooting guide if you have this E1 code. And I walked myself through it. I went out and I actually checked the voltage on the terminals on the outside unit. And I got like 15 to 25, which I don't know if they have different units and stuff, but I was starting to think that maybe it was the inside control board. Long story short, if this happens to you and you have a Senville unit, I would just call Senville because that was a much easier process than me trying to figure this out. I didn't know that at that time, but I would just call them. They were great on the phone. So let's get to that part of the story, right? All right, so I call Senville up. You know, they have their menu, press this for that, that for this. I forget which option it was, but I pressed it. And surprisingly, I was on the phone with somebody really, really quickly. It was a gentleman. He was really professional, really nice. And he said, hey, tell me what's going on with your unit. I explained, you know, what had happened and then I'm getting this E1 code. And he was like, all right, what's the model number? I was like, let me look that up. I'm not sure. I told him I was gonna go check it out on Amazon because I bought it there. And he's like, oh, you bought it on Amazon. You could hear he was on the computer. He's like, what's your name? And he was able to actually find my order and get the model number. And he also saw like, yeah, this was a relatively new system. So he explained, you know, that definitely should not have happened. I'm pretty sure it's the control board. He's like, let me check and see if we have some in stock. They did. And he's like, you know what we're gonna do since this shouldn't have happened, it was a newer unit, is I'm gonna send this to you completely free of charge, no shipping, no nothing, because it's just too early for this to happen. It must have just been a fluke kind of thing, is what he at least made it sound like. So I was like, not gonna argue with that. It sounds great to me. He asked, do you think that you'll be able to replace it yourself? And I was just thinking, you know, some little tiny chip, like that's what it sounded like. It's like, you know, a board. And I'm like, oh yeah, I should be able to replace that. Not realizing like how big it was. And I was able to replace it, but we'll get to that in a minute. So he's like, all right, great. Well, I'll email you with the shipping info and we'll get that sent out to you right away. One last thing he did check, which might be helpful to anybody that has this issue happen, is he wanted to make sure it was the outdoor control board. So he's like, go turn the unit on and then go outside and see if the fan kicks on. And we actually waited a while, which was nice that he like stood on the phone with me just to make sure that it was the right part because he didn't want me to have to wait any longer than I needed to get it fixed. And the fan on the outside unit never turned on. Because originally when I was doing that troubleshooting thing, I was thinking maybe it was the indoor board, but I don't know if it's different for different models and stuff, but at least for mine, that was what kind of confirmed that yes, the outside board wasn't working. So I waited, it took about a week for it to get here, and the control board came, and it was this huge heavy box, which was really surprising to me because, you know, like I said, I was expecting this little tiny chip to just swap it. So let me show you what it actually looked like. So this huge thing right here is actually what was broken. You can see, you know, it's a pretty big piece of equipment, got this huge heat sink and a lot of wires. So when I got it, I'm like, okay, how am I going to replace this, you know? So of course I did what I always do. I just went to YouTube and was like, how to replace outdoor control board on the Senville. And what I was surprised to find is there's a lot of videos on replacing this board, but not necessarily Senville. You know, you can see the different brands. What I was surprised in that is it seems like this is obviously something that just happens to mini splits. Hopefully it doesn't happen in like 5 months, but it is something that tends to happen, and not just specific to one brand. It happens to a lot of the brands, and they're all pretty similar in how they're built. So I was able to find one on Senville, but it was a really old video and he didn't really show how to do it, and it was also a different model and stuff, so it wasn't helpful, but I was able to see some other brands and how they replaced the control board. So long story short, it took me 1 to 2 hours to actually do it. The hardest part was realizing like I had to really take apart and take a lot of the stuff on the outside off to be able to get this board out, mainly because there's a screw, at least on my model, that was like right here. It actually goes in upside down. And in order to get to that screw, I actually had to like remove a bunch of stuff to like get down in there. But you know, it wasn't crazy hard or anything. It's pretty straightforward. I would say if you're not too handy and don't like that stuff, you would maybe have to hire somebody. So a couple tips in case you are gonna replace this. Every unit is a little bit different, but the first thing is just be safe. Make sure there's no power going there. You should flip the breaker, and then on the outside, you should have this safety fuse that you can just pull right out to make sure that there is absolutely no power going to the machine. Then you're gonna have to start taking pieces off of your outdoor mini split, the like sheet metal that basically makes it a box. And this should be, at least on most of them that I saw, it sits on top of the unit like this, all right? And then you have all these wires here. So you're gonna unscrew any screws that are holding this on, and then you're gonna detach all the wires. Something that was really helpful for me is every time I would disattach a wire, I would take a picture of it. That way, if I was confused on putting it back together, I could resort to the pictures, which should come in handy a couple times, and see like, oh, what color were those wires that were connected to this one? And it just made it easy to put it back together. But yeah, you just unsnap all the wires, take this one out, put the new one in, connect all the wires, and then put everything back together. You know, now that I know how to do it, it probably would have taken me a half hour, but really I spent probably 30, 45 minutes just trying to figure out what screws I needed to take out, because at least on my model, I had to take a lot of the outside stuff off. If it hadn't been for that, this would have been super easy. Then I put it back all together, crossed my fingers, turned it on, and luckily for me, it worked. You know, I was a little nervous, like, man, did I put it all back together right? But I guess when you think about it, every single connection is a little bit different. So I don't even know if you could connect it differently. I think there was 2 of these like black and white wires that you possibly could have mixed up, but I took the pictures, so it was actually pretty simple. And now it's working again. So what it really costed me was I had a week where I didn't have the mini split working, and then I had to take about an hour to 2 hours replacing that just because I didn't know what I was doing. It took a little bit longer than it should have. But like I said, you know, hopefully it was just a fluke. I'll let you decide. When I looked online, it didn't seem like this was something that happened to a lot of Senvilles, so maybe it was just, you know, bad luck. But I can say the way Senville handled the problem, I couldn't ask for them to do anything else, you know. I was able to get him on the phone really quickly, really professional, nice guy, talked to me, walked me through everything, sent it out for free, said sorry, it shouldn't happen, asked if I needed any help installing it. Like, you know, I don't know what else they could have done to make it right. So I really appreciate that, but I felt like, you know, I really should make the video because I'll help other people that have that situation kind of understand what's going on. And the biggest advice I get, at least if you got it from Senville, is just call Senville rather than trying to figure it out on the internet and stuff. It's just, they were really fast, easy, and knew exactly what was wrong with it based on what I told them what was going on and whatnot. And then also, you know, if you're considering getting a mini split, that was just my experience. But like I said, just Google it. You can see it's not just a Senville thing. There's a lot of other brands where people are online replacing this outdoor control board. All right, guys, well, appreciate you watching. See you in the next one.